What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to do my official UFC 308 predictions. This weekend, headlining this card, Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway, the fight of the year, in my opinion. The greatest, most intense, closest bout in my entire year that I have, and the most anticipated fight I cannot wait to watch. Also, a co-main event, Robert Whittaker versus Chimaev, an incredible fight to be going down in a co-main event. A 5-round co-main event, a very special fight. Also, Magomedov Ankalaev versus Alexander Rakic is on the card. Undefeated 14-0-1 Lerone Murphy going up against Dan Ige, man who took a fight on 4 hours notice in his last one. Shara, the Pirate Magomedov, going up against Armen Petrosyan. And lastly, the fight I'll cover is Jeff Neal versus Rafael Dos Anjos. If you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications, just so you guys are always notified about future UFC content releasing every single day. But without further ado, let's jump right into the video, breaking down all of UFC 308. What fights to bet on, what fights not to bet on, who's going to win, by how they're going to win, and everything in between. But let's jump right into the video. Okay, so the first fight I want to talk about is a prelim on UFC 308, and it is Mr. Jeff Hands of Steel Neal going up against Rafael Dos Anjos in a welterweight belt. Jeff Neal is currently lost 2 in a row. Lost to Ian Gary, lost to Shavkat Rakhmonov. 2 great losses, in my opinion. 2 surging contenders. In Rafael Dos Anjos' last fight, he fought at UFC 299 against Mateusz Gamrot, where he lost that one. That was also at lightweight, but these two are fighting in the welterweight division. Who do I think is going to really be able to win this fight? I'm just going to go with Jeff Neal. I do think that his power is going to be a really big thing in this fight that's going to allow him to possibly catch Rafael Dos Anjos off a little bit. Now, the grappling department, I don't know how Rafael is going to really be able to do, but I do think that Jeff Neal is going to be able to go in there and get this job done in a pretty significant fashion. Now, I don't know if he's going to necessarily knock him out, but I'm going to go Jeff Neal by decision, considering that Jeff Neal is an incredible fighter. He kind of goes in there, he kind of swings for the fences, as we all know, but he's a great counter striker, and that's something that I do think is going to really help him and benefit him in this fight with Rafael Dos Anjos. So in my opinion, Jeff Neal by decision, or it's going to be Jeff Neal by KO. But I do think this is a close fight. I could see Rafael Dos Anjos winning, but I do think that Jeff Neal is going to be able to do enough to get it done. Okay, in the first fight of the main card, we got Shara Magomedov versus Armen Petrosyan. And who do I think is going to win this fight? Shara Magomedov is 14-0, and Armen is 9-3. Shara's last fight is a win. Armen's last fight is a loss. These two guys are both from Russia. Magomedov is 6'2". Petrosyan is 6'3". But I do think that Shara Magomedov is going to go in here and get the knockout in this fight. Shara Magomedov is a great fighter. He has one eye, which is a crazy fact. I'm assuming most of you guys know that. But Shara Magomedov, even with one eye, is still an absolute killer out there inside the UFC middleweight division. He's such a good kickboxer. It's something incredible to see. He might not have the greatest striking or grappling, or the greatest grappling game, but his striking game is on another level. I do think he's going to go in there and KO Armen Petrosyan. He's got so many different things in his game. In his last fight when he fought Michelle Olashechuk, he absolutely beat him in the co-main event of UFC Abu Dhabi on that Sandhagen Nurmagomedov card. But I do think that Magomedov is going to do enough to be able to get this win. I do think he's going to make this fight look a little bit easy, and I'm going to go Shara by second round KO. Okay, so the next fight is a fight that I want to spend a tiny bit of time on. We got Lerone Murphy going up against Dan Ige, and this fight is going to be my sleeper fight of the entire card. This is such a good fight between 2 featherweight individuals. As we all know, Lerone Murphy is 14-0-1. Dan Ige is 18-8. But Dan Ige's last fight was a loss as well. But that fight, he took on 4 hours notice at UFC 303 to face the number 3 contender in the featherweight division, and gave Diego Lopez easily his toughest challenge ever inside the organization. And since then, Diego Lopez fought Brian Ortega, and he breezed through Ortega. But Dan Ige, an incredible fighter. I do think he's going to have a very good shot at going in here and beating Lerone Murphy. But Lerone Murphy is incredibly calculated, incredibly technical. In his last bout, he had a win in a 5-round main event against Edson Barbosa. I think it was back in May, and I covered it on this channel. That was a great fight. Lerone Murphy looked super duper good. And really, who do I think is going to win this fight? Because I think this is an absolute coin flip. But I am going to go with Lerone Murphy winning this fight. I am a massive Lerone Murphy fan, and genuinely, he is a very good prospect inside this featherweight division. I do think he has the potential to be a top 5 fighter, and possibly even a title challenger one day if he keeps on this path trajectory. But I do think that this is going to be a very close bout for the individuals. I was so close to picking Dan Ige in this fight, and genuinely, I just made my pick prior to recording this segment because I was back and forth on these 2 individuals. But Dan Ige is going to be able to go in there and counter Lerone Murphy, but I do think Lerone's chin is going to be very good. I do think he's going to go in there and be able to fight Dan Ige and do a lot of different stuff with him. I do think he's going to be able to eke out a victory, a 3-round decision for Lerone Murphy over Dan Ige on UFC 308. Now, as the featured bout of UFC 308, we have a light heavyweight match between Alexander Rakic, who is 6'4", has lost his last fight to Yuri Prochazka and is 14-4 in his career, who is taking on the #1 ranked light heavyweight currently in the division, Magomedov Ankalaev. 19-9-1, won no contest. That non-contest was against Johnny Walker. The tie was against Jan Blachowicz. He's 6'3". Beat Johnny Walker in his last one, in the one that they ran back. This is a great fight to be had. Who do I really think is going to be able to get this one? And I'm going to go with Magomedov Ankalaev wrestling his way to a decision. I do think that this is going to be I think this is going to be a closer fight than the odds are saying. The odds are currently -380 for Magomedov Ankalaev and a +300 for Rakic. I do think that Rakic is a very good fighter. He's going to be able to go in there and put a lot of pressure, and I could see him winning this fight. I think the odds are a little bit closer to probably like 200 to like 150 or something like that. Ankalaev, I don't think they should be this stacked, but I do think that Ankalaev is going to be able to go in there and get the win and get a decision win with using that wrestling game. He might not be the greatest wrestler and he might not be the greatest submission artist, but Ankalaev knows how to keep control time. He's a great fighter. He's also got some good hands too. I don't think he's going to be, as powerful as Rakic on the feet, but I do think that he's going to be able to go in there and kind of be able to do some things on the feet and get Rakic to the ground. Rakic is a very massive human being. If you've never seen this guy fight, he's an absolute just ginormous human being. So genuinely, I do think that Rakic is going to have a very good time. I do think this fight is a very close fight, but I just see that Magomedov Ankalaev, he's proven it a little bit more. He's beat some of the best UFC light heavyweights currently, and I genuinely think that he's going to be able to win this fight against Rakic. Now, in a 5-round co-main event, who is going to win this? We got Robert the Reaper Whittaker going up against Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat Chimaev, 13-0, incredible fighter. Robert Whittaker, 27-7. His last 2 fights were wins against Paulo Costa and Ikram Eliskerov. Khamzat Chimaev, as we all know, undefeated, beat Kamaru Usman in his last one, beat Kevin Holland prior to that. And these 2 individuals are now fighting in the middleweight division after Khamzat Chimaev couldn't make welterweight. He fought Usman at middleweight on kind of short notice, and he was supposed to fight Costa in that fight. But these 2 individuals, Robert Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev, how's this fight going to go? I really, really, really do think that Khamzat Chimaev is going to have a very hard time with this fight because I do think that Robert Whittaker's wrestling pedigree and grappling pedigree is going to be able to keep him off the ground in that first round. I do think that Robert Whittaker is also going to have the better gas tank. I think he's going to be able to keep going on in this fight to ultimately get a bunch of victories, considering that every little victory against Khamzat, like Robert Whittaker was saying, he had an interview with Michael Bisping today where he kind of said that if you give Khamzat Chimaev half an inch, she's going to take it. And that is so true. Khamzat Chimaev is an absolute person who capitalizes on any mistake that you possibly make. So Chimaev is going to try to make Whittaker slip up. He's going to try to make Whittaker do this. But really, I do think that he's going to be able to go in there. And Robert Whittaker is going to be able to withstand the round one. He's going to be able to be perfect. He's fought some of the best UFC middleweights of all time. He's fought Dricus du Plessis, the current champion, Adesanya twice, Jared Cannonier, Marvin Vettori, Paulo Costa. He's fought all these different type of guys. So he has the experience going up against someone like Khamzat Chimaev. And yes, no one might not be as good of a grappler as Chimaev, but each one of those other individuals have aspects like Chimaev or even better in some ways. I do think the biggest thing for Robert Whittaker is surviving that first round. If Robert Whittaker can get out of round 1 against Khamzat Chimaev, the greatest first-round fighter in UFC history, in my opinion, he's going to be able to go out there and win this fight. I'm going to say Robert Whittaker by 4th-round KO against Khamzat Chimaev. I do think that Robert Whittaker, being a +210 to -258 underdog, is absolutely crazy in my opinion. I understand the hype behind Khamzat Chimaev, but Whittaker is an absolute beast in there. He is so good, and he's going to have the advantage over Chimaev in a striking aspect by a lot. Khamzat's kind of wild on the striking feet. I think Whittaker is going to be able to do a couple things to kind of keep Khamzat on his toes, but I do think that Robert Whittaker is going to he's got to be understand. He's got to stay patient. He's got to stay composed when he gets into these bad positions with Khamzat. It's going to happen in that first round. Like I said, if Robert Whittaker can even get close to winning the first round, I think that's a victory in his book. But I do think that Whittaker is going to be able to start slowly stacking rounds on top of one another as Khamzat Chimaev kind of tires. Khamzat has never been known to have great cardio. I do think in this fight with Robert Whittaker, that's going to show very quickly, considering that Whittaker is one of the best cardio, has some of the best cardio inside the UFC, and I do think that Robert Whittaker is going to be able to go in there and KO Khamzat Chimaev, giving him his first L in the 4th round of this one, making Robert Whittaker, in my opinion, the #1 middleweight contender. Now, in the main event, we have Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. And I've kind of made a couple videos this week saying, like, how can Ilia Topuria win and how can Max Holloway win? And I'll leave both of those videos down in the description if you have not seen those, because those are some good videos that I've kind of put some time into just to kind of show you that this fight is so even. Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway probably the biggest coin flip of a fight that we've seen this year. I know that some individuals like genuinely had no idea how to do like Adesanya versus Duplessis. There's a lot of different fights that people didn't know how to bet on. In my opinion, I know that Ilia Topuria is a minus 238 favorite, but I do think that this is an absolute coin flip of a fight. I don't know how to go in here and say that Max Holloway's couldn't beat Ilia Topuria, because he has a lot of different ways that he could go in there and win. Ilia Topuria is 15-0 with his last win coming at UFC 298 in that main event in Anaheim, California, knocking out Alexander Volkanovski in the second round. Prior to that, he beat Josh Emmett, Bryce Mitchell. Max Holloway, though, on the other hand, is on a 3-fight win streak, beating Arnold Allen, beating the Korean Zombie, and going up for the BMF title at UFC 300 to beat Justin Gaethje in one of the most incredible fights that I have ever seen. Big thing for me, these two individuals, even though Max Holloway is the taller fighter by 4 inches, these guys got the same reach at 69 inches, and I think that's going to be something that really, it's going to be the equalizer of these two individuals. I did think that Max Holloway was going to be able to go in there and kind of, throw his arms out to keep the distance against Topuria, but he's not going to really be able to do that. I guess the big thing is Max's leg reach, which is 42 inches to compare to Ilia's 37. I do think that that's going to be something that really allows Max Holloway to kind of go in there and kind of dictate that distance between the two, and as Demetrius Johnson says, kind of the void. But who do I think is going to really win this fight? I think that Ilia Topuria is going to get it done. He's just so good. He's so well-rounded. He's going to be able to take the fight to the ground. And I really do think that I'm going to say that Ilia Topuria could possibly get a submission, but I'm going to say that Ilia Topuria is going to be the first person to knock Max Holloway out. And that might be a crazy statement, considering that Max Holloway is one of the best, has some of the best chin inside the UFC. But genuinely, Ilia Topuria's power is ungodly. Like, the way he sent Alexander Volkanovski into the shadow realm was absolutely insane. And I do think that Ilia Topuria's got all the technique and everything with him to really go in there and win this fight. I do think that Ilia Topuria is just so good in every single category, considering that genuinely, he has worked on everything from his Greco-Roman wrestling to being one of the best boxers inside the UFC to having some of the best footwork, defense. Yes, I understand that he has that kind of discrepancy with his left high kick that was kind of exposed by Jai Herbert in some of his other fights prior to the UFC. But I do think that Ilia Topuria is experienced now. He's going to be able to go in there and get this win versus Max Holloway. I do think in a very impressive bout at UFC 308, which they're going to end up going to Spain after for Ilia Topuria's home country. But this is a fight that I could 100% see Max Holloway winning, even if it was Max Holloway by decision, Max Holloway clipping Ilia and knocking him out or TKOing him, I could 100% see. But I just have a feeling that Ilia Topuria is going to go in there and absolutely just put Max Holloway's lights out if he's not careful. I do think that this is going to be a very fun fight. I do think that everything is stacking up for this to be the fight of the year. And ultimately, Ilia Topuria is so good. He's probably the best. He's one of the hottest fighters inside the UFC right now. Incredible fighter to watch. I do think that Ilia Topuria is going to KO Max Holloway in this main event. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and I'll quickly recap what I had from this card of all the fights I broke down. Jeff Neal versus Rafael dos Anjos. I had Jeff Neal winning. Shara Magomedov versus Arman Petrosyan. I had Shara Magomedov winning. Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige. Very, very, very close fight. That's a very toss-up fight. I would not bet on that fight, but I do got Lerone Murphy eking out by a decision. Magomed Ankalaev versus Alexander Rakic. I got Magomed Ankalaev kind of wrestling his decision to a victory. Robert Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev. I do got Whittaker winning, going in there and just showing that he's one of the best fighters inside the organization and kind of keeping his status inside the top 3 of the middleweight division. And lastly, in that main event, Ilia Topuria, Max Holloway. Ilia Topuria ends up getting the KO victory over Max Holloway in this bout. This is one of the best cards of the year, an incredibly deep, fun card to be had, considering that we got fighters even on the bottom who, like, Renat is on this card. We got Bruno Ferreira, Chris Barnett, so many fun fighters kind of scattered all the way throughout this card, and I do think this is going to be one of the best cards of the year UFC 308 is in Abu Dhabi. I think that this card is incredibly special, considering that we got a main event that's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime fight, co-main event fight that we've been waiting to see for kind of this entire year, and a bunch of other fights that are incredible on this card. Well, if you guys enjoyed the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications just so you guys are always notified about future UFC content releasing every single day. But without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know what you think about these predictions down below in the comment section, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.